Hi, Dean Brown here at downtown Hollywood, Studio F, Musicians Institute. They were nice enough to let us use this room to show you the DV Mark Multiamp. It's their new digital modeling amp. And I'm going to run you through some of the controls and some of the different things about the amp, and then maybe play a little bit, show you how it sounds. So here's the multi-amp, and I want to talk about the front panel for a minute. Now there's a whole bunch of knobs and stuff on here. These red knobs you see are basically like a guitar amp. That's how they function. But the way that you get to the different models and stuff, we'll get to it in a second. The first thing, why don't we start from left to right, and I'll show you some of the different knobs and switches and buttons and stuff. And I'll tell you, listen, I'm not really a technical kind of guy. If I can work this amp, anybody can. So let's start right here with the pad. Now, what that does is it changes the input level that you're giving the amp. So for instance, if you have a guitar that's really hot, or a signal that comes out of the guitar is really hot, or more commonly one that's kind of like a weak signal, you can change that pad and kind of tailor it to that particular instrument that you're using. So anyway, that's the pad setting there. Then you have the different channels, and each one of these, basically it's like channel 1, channel 2, and channel 3. Channel 1 is kind of the clean models. Channel 2 is kind of the sort of crunch models, and channel 3 is kind of the high gain models. So right now, here's the clean models you can see. And then here's the crunch models, and you know, there's some various different ones, and you can go to a store and try the amp out, and you'll see that each one of these amps is really great. But you know, I don't want to get into all of them right now. Anyway, here's the sort of high gain amps in there, and they're really great. And by the way, the presets in there, I tend to just go through presets. It kind of saves time. I'll go through and find a nice preset and then tweak that preset, you know. But anyway, so that's that. Now speaker, that particular switch is used in a couple different ways. What it is it's like a speaker modeler, and as you can see, there's all these different options for mic placement and cab model and level and high pass and low pass filters and respire, which is this thing that sort of makes it feel like it's an ambient mic as opposed to a close mic, something like that. But anyway, that's what the speaker thing is for, and typically I wouldn't use that if I had speakers, actual speakers. This is really cool for when you're recording direct. Then the master, and the master volume is pretty much what it says it is. It's the master volume for whatever sound that you have up, and that's you know, you turn it up, it gets loud, and it gets real loud because it's 250 watts a side. It's a digital amp, but it is so warm, and I think that's what really separates this amp from a lot of the other modeling amps, is that the actual amplifier section is a really, really warm, just wonderful guitar amp. All right, so anyway, then the six, like I said, the 6 lower knobs are the same knobs that you see on 90,000 amps that are out there, you know, gain, bass, mid, high, presence, level, all that type of stuff. Then you get to the display, and I've been showing you stuff on the display. Each one of these little things in the display is called a slot. There's 8 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll talk a little bit about how, you know, how that all works, but let me get through the front panel with you again. So the slot select, that's how you choose a particular slot, which is like each one of these things. So for instance, here we are in slot 7. Now you can see that there's a little sort of cursor that you use with this. So, you know, I'll hit the slot select, and now I can choose from a number of different effects and, you know, all different kinds of things, you know, chorus and flangers, and, you know, there's just a ton of stuff in there. There's even a volume pedal, and you know, a send return, which you can plug your own effects in, and like a loop, which is in the back of the amp. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so let me get out of there. So like I said, there's 8 slots. The slots work sequentially. So in other words, if you look at what's going on this particular setting right here, you see there's like compression and distortion, which are not on. Now, if you want them to be on, you simply go to that and then hit slot on, and that turns it on or off, right? Now, the way this works is, as I said, is sequential. So wherever you put the amp, whatever you put after the amp is kind of like if you were in a recording studio and you were going to put reverb on a dry amp through a microphone or something like that. You know, it's after the amp. Whereas the distortion is more like if it was a distortion pedal that you had in line before the amp. So it goes in the sequence. So this is one of their models. And for me, I would probably put the amp later in the chain so I could have more stuff in front of it. Not much later, maybe here, you know, maybe in slot 4 or something like that. That's kind of what's going on with the slots. Now here we are. Enter means pretty much what it says. Whatever you're doing, you enter it, and it will give you the, like for instance, what just happened there is I had the distortion slot on. So when I hit enter, now I get to the point where I can actually change aspects of that particular effect. Store is their word for save. Oh, exit just gets you out of anything and gets you back to the sort of the home screen, right? And so then recall is where you access all the different models of amps, and there's the live mono, live stereo, studio, PA. Those 3 are the preset patches. And those, like I said, what I tend to do is kind of go through those patches, find something nice, and then tweak it to fit my needs, you know, and that's one way to do it. Of course, you can build it from scratch. And then the user ones are the patches that you saved for your own purposes. And we're going to get to that when I pick a guitar up in a minute. That's what recall is about. The SD card is that's the way you can get the new firmware put into the thing. Or, for instance, what I do is I don't even carry an amp with me usually, like if I go to Europe or something like that. What I'll do is I'll just bring the SD card. No, I think it's a 4 gig card, no bigger, it won't work. If you put a bigger card in, it won't work. So make sure you use a 4 gig SD card, and that card will enable you to take your own programs, put it in the amp, or if you found some programs that you like from an amp, you could steal them and take them from that amp and go the other way. Now, what I wanted to talk about a little bit is this little thing down here called the system. And this is where you get to a lot of the sort of guts of programming the amp, especially for things like MIDI and stuff like that. So here, file, that's how you store to the SD card or delete presets, things like that. Amp mode, you can have the amp in stereo or a mono bridge. And when I turn the amp around in a minute, I'll show you a little bit about the back panel, and we can talk about that. Then MIDI. That's just the MIDI address, and the MIDI address for this is 0. Strangely, you know, most MIDI stuff that I know about, and I know very little about MIDI, but it usually starts at 1. But for some reason, this one starts at 0. So you just have to get used to, you know, maybe changing a number 1 different, like 0 is 1 and 1 is 2 and stuff like that. And you just get used to it. It's not a big deal. Also in the MIDI is the preset patch map, and that again is like as you go up, you see different patches. Anyway, these are things that obviously you know that are more related to when you have like a MIDI controller, and maybe at the end of this I'll talk a little bit about that. One more thing in the MIDI is the control change map. You know, it's very technical to me. I mean, the MIDI has been around for a long time, but if you're a guitar player and you're not used to working in that domain, you know, just read up a little bit on it and it'll help you. But it's pretty simple. I mean, the idea is you make a control change number, and that has to correspond to whatever the piece of equipment is that you're trying to get it to change to. So anyway, like I said, I know about as much as about that as you do, so I don't want to talk too much about it. Although I've you know, grudgingly figured out how to read a couple manuals and program a little MIDI controller, which like I said, I'll show you later. All right, there's a tuner in here, which works pretty good, and you can see it from a pretty good distance. And like I said, the firmware update really has to do more with when you have the SD card and you want to input new software into the amp. You can do that from your computer. All right, so there you go. That's pretty much the front panel. All right, so here's the back panel of the Multiamp, and this is where you plug in the AC power cord. I want to talk about that for a second because this particular amp is, for the US, so which means it's like 110 or whatever. And then if you're going to use a multi-amp in Europe, then the multi-amp would be prioritized for that. So there's no switching in here where you can switch between 220 or anything like that. And that's probably a good idea. Anytime that you have those type of switching things where it's switching voltages, it can be a little tricky. This is the speaker outs. And here's the left and right 1/4 inch outs. And then in the middle is the mono bridge, which you can either use a 1/4 inch or you can use this weird little cable that looks like this, which is a Neutrix cable, and that's kind of the kind of industry standard for power amps. And what's really cool is, like, a lot of times I'll be on the road and if I have 2 cabinets, great. If I don't, if I have a Marshall cabinet, I'll come out of the Neutrix. You know what I mean? I have all these different options. So it's very cool. Here's the balanced line out and unbalanced line outs, which are 1/4 inch. This is, XLR. And so those are for, like, if you're recording in your house and you can't make noise or something like that. But it's not even like that. This amp really sounds good. Like I told you, there's a whole speaker model in there that sounds wonderful. So so you can take advantage of that by using these. And then the USB at this point is not for MIDI. It's a USB A to A cable, and a USB A cable looks like this one. Now, you've seen it a million times. And then the other one looks sort of, the other side tends to look square. That would be a A to B. This is an A to A. This is for taking and putting it in a computer, and they have a program, DV Mark has a program where you can sort of modify and program the amp from the computer. And it's pretty cool. It saves a little time, like if you already have a sound you like and you want to move things around, it's effective for that. All right, so then this is your regular MIDI in and through. There's no MIDI out, it's not necessary. So the MIDI in, this is what makes this amp really cool, is that the idea is that if this amp in conjunction with some sort of a MIDI controller, like a MIDI foot switch or something like that, really enables you to do a lot of really cool stuff when you're performing live. And then this is the loop, which this is where, say for instance, you have some sort of pedal or something or whatever that's not available in their software. Well, like a wah-wah, for instance, which they've promised me that they're going to do a wah-wah really soon, like a virtual wah, which I think will be awesome. But anyway, you could plug your wah-wah in here and then, again, choose the slot that you would like it to come out of, and we talked about that a little bit before. So that's the back panel of the amp. Okay, so enough of this stuff. Now, this is all fine and good. Let's see what it sounds like. All right, so let's hear what this thing sounds like. I'm just going to pick a couple of their presets and then tweak them a little bit. I'll go through that for a second, and then just play a little bit so you can hear what it's going to sound like. So here's this setting called dark face, which what that probably means is like a deluxe blackface, that type of a sound. So, which sounds great. I haven't touched anything, and it sounds fantastic. The only thing is there's a little much reverb for me, for my liking. So what I'll do is I'll just come up to that particular slot, right? Open it up, and let's go to the part where it says reverb, and just take it down. Maybe even less. There we go. So now I like that. So maybe I'll save it, maybe I won't. But you see how easy it is for me to just sort of get at that. So. get the idea. All right, so let's try a different sound. So I'll go to Recall, Live Stereo, and I'll pick, let's try this thing that says DV Crunch and see what that's about. Ooh, me like. So, again, like each one of these models is not just a model, but a preset in here, and you can and so they've set up some stuff for you. So let's see what this one sounds like without me doing anything. Nice, nice, but it would be a little bit nicer if it had just a little bit of touch of delay. So again, all I would do is I go and pick an open slot that doesn't have anything in it, right? And then hit slot select, and then scroll down till I can find a delay. And I'm not going to look around very much. Here's one. Let's see what that one. Okay, 430 is good. Regeneration time. The mix is going to be too much. Well, it's not even. Well, let me see what happens when I enter it. Ah, see what I didn't do was I have to turn the slot on. So now it's on. Way too much delay, right? So now what I'm going to do is come down to this where it says mix, and I'm going to back that off one hell of a lot. Still too much for me. Nice, nice. Now we're getting somewhere. How about stereo though? That might be fun. So let's Nice, nice. Now it kind of, spreads around the room a little bit. But like I said, I turned the delay down so it's not going to wash me out. Now we exit there, and now we've got that there. I haven't saved it, but it's what it is for the moment until I change the patch. So let's see what it sounds like now. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, so as you can see, there's a number of different patches and different sounds and different presets and all kinds of things that you can use. But now, just to close this out, I'm going to show you how I use it with a MIDI foot controller. All right, so now I'm going to use a MIDI foot controller. This one is a KMI Soft Step 2. And you can use any one. Now, pretty soon, I think DV Mark is coming out with their own prioritized one, which I think is going to be really hip. But anyway, like I said, it's it's MIDI compatible. So I chose this one, and let me show you what I would do with it, or what I want to try to do with it. The idea now is that I'm using the bottom 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, as different sounds, and then these top switches, 6, 7, 8, and 9, I'm using to control various slots turning them on and off. So the bottom part is the programs, and then the top part is the slots. And then 0 I programmed so that I could get the tuner, which I need to do right now. So let me see if we can. Yeah, there we go. Close enough. Okay, so I'm just using this sound. But you know what? I think maybe it would be nice with some reverb. So, boom. See, I just have a little touch. And then maybe a little bit of delay. Now, what's cool about that, and that makes it a little different than some of the other modeling amps I've tried, is that once you're within a particular sound, a particular patch, you have the different slots, right? And when you turn them on and off, the whole sound doesn't go away. But if you, like, say, have a patch set up where it's like, okay, this is my sound, and then I have another patch that's my same sound with reverb, there's this weird little dip that happens that I don't like. So that's why I set up my pedal to act more like a pedal board. Like, so it's just like, here's my delay, here's my distortion. Here's an octaver. You know, I'm into the sounds. I forget that I'm supposed to be showing you how to work this stuff. So anyway, yeah, so you get the idea, right? Now, one other thing that you can do, as I told you, is you can use I didn't bring a volume thing with me, volume pedal, but I programmed one of these foot switches to sort of work like a volume pedal. So check this out. You know, so that's kind of cool, and obviously it might be more supple if you used an actual expression pedal, but you can do it, you know, and that's coming from here. You know, there's the I'm using the volume that's in the right there, in that slot 4. So, how about I just play you a little something, and we'll call it a day. DV Multiamp.